Thank you, Noe. Hello, everyone. My name is Amélie, and I'm the one doing the presentation today, this last session of the training, in a package of four sessions for the establishment of eco-mooring areas for recreational boats under 24 meters. So we mainly focus on the regulation of small recreational boating. This training has been organized in the framework of the Mediterranean Blue Forest Project, managed by WWF and different scientific partners and institutions of the Mediterranean. So during the first session, you saw Catherine Piant. She is the program officer for Posidonia at WWF France, and I was also there for the first training. Amélie Foncuberta, I'm a consultant for WWF France, and I'm helping and supporting small municipalities in the establishment of eco-mooring areas in terms of knowledge and expertise. And I am also a marine biologist and I'm a professional diver. So I'm working on the implementation and establishment of eco-mooring areas, mainly in France. Welcome, everyone. At the beginning, we had planned to give you the floor to all of you for you to introduce yourself, but there were many people at the beginning. So in the end, we just decided to show you this map. You come from different countries, more than 20 countries, and many French-speaking countries. This is why we have held this training in French. Today, there are fewer people, so do not hesitate to say something or to write in the chat so that it's going to be more dynamic. So you can ask questions in the chat. You can write them. So don't hesitate if you have any comments or questions. So let's see whether I have to recap on some topics. Can you please answer this first question? Did you take part in the first training module? And this is the Slido that is in the chat. You have a link in the chat, so click on the link and answer, okay? Just click on the link, and I'm also gonna do it, okay? So did you take part in the first training module? I'll give you some more seconds to give me an answer. During the first sessions, we talked about recreational boating and Posidonia. So I think there is one person that did not take part in the first training module. So I'm going to go very quickly on the context for those who have not been maybe directly working on the Posidonia Meadow in order to let them understand why this training. So Posidonia oceanica is an underwater habitat which is very sensitive and it is degrading very fast and very strongly. It is a marine flowering plant endemic to the Mediterranean Sea. It's not an algae that you can remove. And it has a weak growth. The estimated coverage of Posidonia is 1.5 million hectares in the Mediterranean, and it is present basically in all the northern countries of the Mediterranean. It provides key ecological functions for the protection of biodiversity at sea because it is a nursery habitat for hundreds of marine species. It protects from coastal erosion and it provides long-term carbon storage. And there can also lead to water quality improvement. And thanks to Posidonia, there can be a clear water, although many people think that it's the opposite. Actually, Posidonia is filtrating water particles and make it clearer. Over the past few years, 34% of Posidonia meadows have disappeared, and one of the main causes is mechanical damage and removal from activities, human activities, and especially boat anchoring and recreational boating along our coast. What is recreational boating? It is one of the most dynamic marine activities in the Mediterranean. There's about 2 million recreational boats in the Mediterranean, and just in France, in the Mediterranean, there's more than 420,000 boats. So recreational boating is responsible for physical damage to seagrass meadows. So click on the YouTube link. There is a video that you can watch so that you can see what big boats can do and all the damage that they can do on the Posidonia meadows. It's as if you left on a picnic, you are in a forest, and rather than um, eating on a grass, you start cutting trees and you leave waste everywhere. So this video is very useful. However, boating is also an activity that generates essential economic benefits for coastal communities. So the aim is not to stop recreational boating, but to organize it and better govern it. Here you can find some links where you can have further information on Posidonia and on all the activities implemented today to protect the Posidonia meadows. They are from the Mediterranean Posidonia Network and from WWF. So why this training? This training was organized with two main aims. Understand how to best manage moorings at sea and present two solutions that have been implemented in France. On the one hand, the regulation of moorings, and on the other, the possibility to establish eco-mooring areas in order to avoid impact on the Posidonia meadows. WWF has published a toolkit with thematic sheets, targeting all managers in order to see all the steps involved in the establishment of eco-mooring areas. Here you have the link to download all the 8 thematic sheets and the toolbox. The toolbox is both in French and English. It's about 100 pages long and it is consists of 8 sheets. So the training was made up of 4 parts. Module number 1 concerning a global strategy on eco-mooring areas, and then a general understanding for module number 2 of an eco-mooring area and what it implies. Module number 3, the last one, was focusing on the technical characteristics of an eco-mooring area and all the works carried out. And today, module number 4 is going to be more of an administrative nature and management nature. So we're talking about the management models that can be implemented. And we're also going to talk about the economic model of eco-mooring areas. So 20 minutes for the first part concerning management, 15 minutes for the second part, the costs of mooring areas. Last time there were some questions that you asked to talk about, for example, environmental monitoring that can be implemented after the establishment of eco-mooring areas. So we will be talking about that. And in the end, we're going to have Sylvain Blouet, who is going to present how in AGD they have managed their eco-mooring area. So he's going to be presenting at the end of this module. So what are the key points of previous trainings? So in previous trainings, we have seen how to design a strategy for the management of moorings in order to identify the sites where management and regulation can be implemented. Then we have focused on the opportunity survey, which is a small survey that is not very expensive so that managers can anticipate what's going to happen in the establishment of eco-mooring areas. Then we went through consultation procedures, how you imply all the stakeholders, the feasibility study, which is actually the very specific study on biological, landscape, and physical parameters, and then the carrying out of works with all the different tools needed. And now we're going to talk about how you manage, you do surveillance, you maintain, and you anticipate costs of eco-mooring areas. So the management of an eco-mooring area starts at the end of the works. Here you can see the responsibilities connected to the management of an eco-mooring area, the different management models with their advantages and disadvantages, and the responsibilities connected to management. As we said beforehand, the management of an eco-mooring area has to be anticipated when it's not at the end of the work so that you start thinking about the management. It must be management, must be anticipated, and it has to be done. It has to be thought about, designed at the beginning of the works. So when you talk about the management of an eco-mooring area, you mean the maintenance of eco-moorings, the removal and replacement of equipment, the allocation of berths, the monitoring and surveillance of the eco-mooring area. For example, monitoring the visitor number in order to understand whether the eco-mooring area meets the needs of voters or not, and then the management of material and human resources needed so that everything goes well. So you need to understand the responsibilities involved, and you need to understand what human and economic resources are needed. So why are we talking about the project owner, manager, beneficiary of the agreement, etc., etc.? When you want to establish or create an eco-mooring area, there is an applicant, someone who wants to establish the eco-mooring area, submitting an application to state authorities responsible for the maritime public domain or for the environment, let's say at sea. So the agreement is going to be drawn up and negotiated by the applicant and the environmental state authorities in order to understand who does what. And when the agreement is approved, the applicant of the eco-mooring area becomes the beneficiary of an agreement of an eco-mooring area that is working in the area. And then the beneficiary of this agreement will decide what type of management should be implemented. And if he wants to directly manage the eco-mooring area, or if he wants to delegate the management of the eco-mooring area to a service provider, like a private service provider. So that manager can be the municipality, the town, the city, an intercommunal department, a marine protected area, or a private company, or an NGO. In France, most eco-mooring areas are managed by municipalities. The municipalities are managing the eco-mooring areas. There is a specific example of private manager in France, which is located in Pamplona on Côte d'Azur. There you have a private manager managing the allocation of births. And when you know who the manager is, together with the beneficiary of the agreement, they are defining the rules of the game for the eco-mooring area, and they are going to come up with a regulation for use, which is going to be made available to boaters. For example, saying whether boaters can stay at night, how many hours they can moor in the area, and so forth, and so on and so forth. So a regulation governing everything. As for the advantages and the disadvantages of the two types of management, direct or indirect management, clearly this is quite subjective because if it's an advantage or disadvantage, everything depends on who is going to manage the area. But when I'm talking about the direct management by the beneficiary of the agreement, a total advantage, an advantage is that the beneficiary is going to have total control over management and operations, and he can have greater responsiveness to needs and problems. But the main disadvantage, for example, in small municipalities or in small towns that need to manage boating, actually, they need to have significant human and financial resources because the management of an eco-mooring area sometimes needs to have a boat at sea in order to make boaters pay, for example. And you need to have human and financial resources for that. And also, indirect management, the risk management is entirely the project owner's responsibility. When the management is indirect or delegated, for example, to a private manager, there are some advantages, as you can see. In sheet number 7 of the toolbox, you can find a whole list of advantages to which I make a reference to. The main ones are these. The private sector sometimes can mobilize more significant expertise and resources compared to the public sector, for example. For a town or a municipality, it can reduce administrative and financial burden because, for example, the management at water, the payment of fees, maintenance of buoys and chains. These are all tasks made by the private manager. They are going to put and remove buoys or chains. They are doing maintenance. They have to do everything to make sure that the eco-mooring area is working. However, this eco-mooring area has to be profitable because clearly private managers look for profitability. As for disadvantages, there is a loss of control over day-to-day management in the area. And also, there can be some conflicts of interest between the profitability for the private manager, and environmental preservation. Sometimes private managers make managers that are more profitable rather than, let's say, eco-friendly or environmentally safe. And if the private manager no longer wants to engage in the management of the eco-mooring area, there could be some loss of control or loss of know-how um, by the municipality. Oftentimes, indirect or delegated management must anyhow be followed by the beneficiary of the agreement, by the one that has signed the agreement, in order to provide continuity. Here you have the different management responsibilities involved according to the type of management, direct or indirect. In any case, there are different types of responsibility, and everything depends on the dialogue established and the agreement made between the agreement beneficiary and the manager. However, the toolbox provides you the main guidelines and the main responsibilities. For direct management by the project owner, the manager must do everything, maintenance, safety, compliance with the rules. They have to take out an insurance covering property damage, personal injury, civil liability, and environmental risks. And here you have the example of Porcro. Porcro is fully managing the marine protected area and also the relevant eco-mooring area. And then you have the indirect management delegated to a private manager. For example, in the Bay of Cannes, in the south of France, there is a private company under a delegation agreement managing the eco-mooring area. In this case, the manager must take out the insurance and together with the underwater works company is responsible for property damage or for boat accidents. The project owner must make sure that the manager has taken out all the insurance needed. So these are the two most famous options in France, direct and indirect management. You can find the other ones in the toolbox. And there is also a description of different types of example. How French MPAs are managing eco-mooring areas and the management made by private companies and so on and so forth. So you can delegate all the management of an eco-mooring area or just of one part of the eco-mooring area. So in the management agreement, you can define all that. Also, the project owner remains solely responsible for the facilities. Even if there is a manager, the project owner is always responsible for the area, in the area. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. This is the last sheet of the toolbox. The economic model of eco-mooring areas in France. So Through this, we will understand the complex financial balance involved in managing eco-mooring areas. We will identify the different categories of costs related to the different steps. And also, please go and see in the sheet of the toolbox directly. There is a description of the operating accounts and the operational budget. It's a very big table with a lot of numbers. So I'm not going to present it, but you can have a look at sheet number 8 of the toolbox. So these are the costs of preliminary studies. So at the beginning, I talked to you about the opportunity study and then environmental landscape and seabed surveys. As I said in the previous training, the cost of the opportunity study costs about 20,000 euro. Environmental studies cost about 80,000, 100,000 euro. The seabed survey, depending on what you do, can cost between 25 and 40,000 euro, and the preparation of the regulatory file costs between 10,000 and 15,000 euro. So you can see a total of about 200,000 euro, let's say, for these preliminary studies. As for works, here you have the analysis, the diagnosis of abandoned microwaves or illegal mooring blocks, because in some mooring areas, this is a problem that needs to be taken into account of, because the seabed can be full of mooring blocks, and therefore management is not possible without removing them. You have to take away a ballast, the old ballast of mooring blocks. And that costs about 20,000 euros. This is for the analysis. Then you have to remove them if they can have an impact on the seabed. So sometimes you need to remove all the ballast and all the waste on the seabed, which can cost between 60,000 and 100,000 euro. Then you have the purchase of anchors and installation mooring lines and buoys. This is the highest cost. So on average, out of 18 projects, the purchase of anchors and installation mooring lines was between 5,000 and 7,000 euro per anchor, including installation costs. And then there is a phase of preparation and site management and environmental monitoring, and then the bailiff report about 15,000 euros. So for a total of around 500,000 euro for this step. And finally, you have the operating cost of an eco-mooring area. That depends on the tools already made available in the area. For a small municipality which has no boat, which has no people at sea, this is an investment that can be quite significant. But for example, in a marine protected area, where you already have guards, rangers, or boats for surveillance, the price is lower, the cost is lower. So the operating cost can be quite variable depending on the situation. Here I'm talking about a municipality that doesn't have much. Usually the annual maintenance of equipment is between 5 and 10% of the installation cost. You also have to take into consideration the cost of the insurance policy that needs to be taken, and then the monitoring of the ecological mooring area, for example, the monitoring of the Posidonia meadow, which can cost about 40,000 euro for 3 years. And in France, eco-mooring area managers need to pay a sort of domain fee to the state. This is a tax levied by the French state for the temporary occupation of the public maritime domain. So the cost is about 700 euro per year for one anchoring system. So for a small municipality with 50 buoys, it's about 50,000 euro to pay as a tax. But there's not just costs. There can also be some income, some potential income for an eco-mooring area. In most cases, for example, you have to pay for an eco-mooring area either over the night or maybe also during the day. And usually the daily rate for small vessels is between 15 and 60 euros per day per boat, depending on the size of the boat. So the tariff system depends on the size of the boat. And then there are other types of income for additional services, such as waste collection services, gray water collection services, black water collection services, shuttle services to the port, fresh water electricity. So services that need to be paid by boaters. And in France, there is often subsidies and the state aid to project owners, which are given to cover the preliminary studies. But there is no aid for the operation of the eco-mooring area, just for the preliminary steps. So, three key ideas to take away. These costs are quite significant, about 800,000 euro overall for an eco-mooring area of 50 buoys in France. Operating costs might really be planned upfront because they can be very variable depending on the size of the boat, depending on the choices made. And in France, in general, financial equilibrium is difficult to achieve because revenues from recreational boaters fees are not enough to cover costs. Okay, I am done with the training on the toolbox. Don't hesitate to ask questions. During the last training, there were questions on monitoring that can be done after the establishment of an eco-mooring area or during the operation of an eco-mooring area. And so very quickly, I'll talk about these types of monitoring, and then you're gonna receive some links downloadable from the MedPan website so that you can have a further info, because this is not part and parcel of this toolbox.
Right. So very often environmental monitoring is carried out during the exploitation of the mooring area. And essentially, so it concentrates on the Posidonia meadows, on the sediments, the water column, and also everything that has to do with the quality of the swimming water. Also, you need to take pictures of each anchoring before and after the season to check the maintenance of the anchoring. And so in the management strategy of the Mediterranean mooring systems, you have different sheets that you can download, and you have sheet number 6 that explains all the monitoring activities that are requested by the national French state. So there's a list of requirements in terms of monitoring that needs to be complied with, also to make a final sort of report about the status. So here you see the link. So please do not hesitate to have a look at these sheets and well, how to guarantee the monitoring of Posidonia meadows in particular? Well, this is a simplified procedure. So there are standardized monitoring protocols that can be downloaded from the Medpan website, but usually you need to check the vitality of the meadow. So before the setup, during the setup of the mooring area, and after the setting up. So you really need to consider the thickness, the density, and also the number of rhizomes that show. So those that are vertical, those that are horizontal, to see if there is a regression phase or an expansion phase. And also you should check over a specific plastic square, as you can see in the picture, the recovery rate and the distribution of Posidonia on that square. And so usually you need to mark on a map then the upper and lower limits of the growth. Then you have the monitoring of the water column. There is a specific inframare protocol to be followed that sets standards for water quality before the setting up of the mooring area, and then during the exploitation of the mooring area, and after the use. So there are also requirements and parameters for the sediments, and you can see that there is a text illustrating all the different parameters that concern both the water quality and the sediment monitoring. So there are specific parameters that are indicated. But remember that everything that you're going to find is referred to the situation in France. So when you do water monitoring, you also assess the bacteriological quality. And again, if you click on the link, you will find the specific bacteriological requirements to see if maybe there are polluting agents. And again, there are all the different details explained in the text that you can download from the link. And then you have a last monitoring activity that is very technical. After each season, all of the tools and equipment, all the devices for mooring needs to be assessed and checked, keeping in mind that everything, the chains, everything is, recovered and also needs to be double checked and if needed replaced for the next season. Well, I don't know if the people who had asked me about the monitoring activities are here today, but again, this is a brief overview of the monitoring activities and the key parameters, and also the link that you can use to download the specific relevant tests and from the link. So this is all. And here you see the contact details of Pierre Ivardi, who also worked for WWF, and also the contact details of Catherine Piante. So do not hesitate to keep in touch with us through emails if you have further questions. I know that some of you did. So do not hesitate to keep asking questions if you have any, because we're there for you. To support you in the exploration and use of the toolbox. So I would like to thank Medpan for the organization. It was excellent. It was flawless. Thank you very much for the excellent organizational work. And that's it. So I leave you a few minutes. If you have questions, please do not hesitate. You can ask for the floor, or you can write your questions in the chat as you like. I don't know. Are the managers of possible future mooring areas were following this session? I would really like to know if any of you is considering this possibility, and maybe you are somehow considering some possible obstacles, or maybe you are facing obstacles. I don't know. Right. So I give the floor now to Sylvain Blouet, who is the manager of an MPA on the Alcatraz coast next to Montpellier and Marseille. And he set up an ecological mooring area just next to the MPA area. So he has been sharing his experience, and today is going to tell you more about the monitoring activities that he carries out in his MPA to check if the mooring area, functions properly. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Well, I'm not in my office, so I hope that you can hear me properly. Great. Thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So I am the manager of the Côte d'Argenteuil MPA that is overlooking the Mediterranean. So next slide, please. Thanks. So we have 6,500 hectares with a great variety of species, and the city of Agde is the manager, is the owner, and is in charge of the MPA. And we do apologize, but the sound is not very good now. Sylvain, we are very sorry, but we can't hear you any longer. We are really sorry, but we can't hear you. Well, yes, it was pretty fragmented. So I tried to find a better position. I hope you will keep hearing me. Great. Right. So the municipality manages these 6,500 hectares surface, and we have set up just next to it an ecological mooring area. So Amelie asked me to tell you more about the management and some practical aspects. We do apologize, but the sound is really very bad. Actually, we cannot hear at all. Yeah, it's very fragmented. It's very fragmented, so with very long silent moments. Well, let's see if it works better from here. Let's try, because actually it's hard to tell. So Amelie asked me to tell you more about the daily management of this area. So what does that imply on a daily basis? So there is the maintenance of the mooring area. Well, we have a contractor for that. So a private contractor is in charge of the maintenance, and so it deals with the maintenance of the whole mooring area. So it starts in April and finishes in September. So they deal with the inspection, preparation, and maintenance of buoys, location and checking of each mooring system, including installation of buoys, and dismantling at the end of the season. So the contractor deals also with the checking of the anchoring systems during the installation. So we have 44 moorings, so it takes 3 days to install all the buoys. And when it comes to the dismantling, so it's quicker and the contractor makes it in 2 days. So the total cost is of about 20,000 euros per year. And so this is a contractor and that does this, and we do that for insurance reasons. So this is a choice that we made on person because this contractor has a specific insurance coverage. I don't know, in case of uh, damages to the buoys or breakages. So that's the choice that we made to deal with the maintenance of the mooring area. Then, next slide, thanks. Well, on a daily basis, you need to consider additional activities because you can't simply install it and that's it. No, you have some daily activities to be carried out every day when it comes to the information and awareness raising of the public. We have a blue patrol that deals with the information and awareness raising all through the summer. It's 2 people that try to inform and raise awareness in the people, in the public, explaining what it is, why is it there, making people understand the importance in terms of biodiversity preservation, environmental protection. So this is something that we need to do every day, so especially in July and August. And we also have signs, brochures, leaflets, and also we try to distribute these information materials in the marinas, in the ports, in the diving centers, where boats are rented. We try also to put all these materials everywhere. This Blue Patrol deals with studies and research work to calculate the number of visitors and also tries to check, on the condition of the buoys, if they're all there, if some of them have been damaged or not, and so on. Well, when it comes to the regulatory aspects, we collaborate with the French competent maritime authorities that are in charge of fines, for instance. So if people anchor in other areas and not using the buoys. Next slides, please. So we have seen the technical functioning of the mooring area. Let's have a look now at the assessment phase. How can we assess the effectiveness of such an area? How can you improve the effectiveness? And also, how can you check and measure if the management goals that had been set have been completely fulfilled and achieved? Because the final goal was to reduce the impact of anchoring and mooring on the seabed, and at the same time, another key goal was to re-establish a specific habitat functions. So we have developed several indicators to check this, and these indicators aim at the species and habitat protection, and in particular, we have two bigger indicators. So we have Posidonia and Gorgonia, for instance, and Patella, and also the safety of the area is related to specific indicators, and then the acceptation of the ecological mooring area by the users. So to see if the public as well accepted that, because this is another key objective. So we really need the people to accept that. We need people to embrace this initiative. So also, we try to check the evolution of all the human-related activities, including diving and recreational boating and so on. So these are indicators that have been set to monitor and follow the evolution of this area. And every year we gather together all the major stakeholders using the area to somehow see how things are going and also to share with them the results of these assessment work. So we share with them the different data about the different indicators that we analyze. Let's have a look. So every indicator has a specific evaluation system that can range from very good to very bad. So if you want a copy of the report, I can send it to you. It's available in French, but you can still have a look at it to see how we calculate the different indicators. And the basic idea is to analyze the evolution of the indicators over time. So to see if things are going well or not. So if the Posidonia meadows are evolving well, if the eco-mooring area has been well accepted, and also if the eco-mooring area is used not only by recreational boarders but also by professionals. So this is a sort of dashboard that let us managers better understand if things are being done properly or if, corrective measures need to be taken. Also when it comes to communication, information, and awareness raising. Amélie, you already mentioned this, but when it comes to monitoring, we have Posidonia and Gorgonia that are key indicators. So to assess the impact of anchoring on these two species. So then we do some mapping after analyzing the data, and also we try to assess the vitality of the meadow, the thickness and density. For instance, we have a telemetric system. It's an acoustic pointer that let us map the whole situation at underwater level. And then we have the Gorgonian indicators. And this is another very effective indicator to see the impact of these mooring area on rocky bottoms. You see here the coverage of Gorgonian in zone number 1 that increased. And so we were able to increase by 9 the density of Gorgonians thanks to the eco-mooring area and thanks to the setting up of specific buoys for boats, for the mooring of boats. Next slide, please. Oh, well, I did not remember if I had another one. Okay, so I'm finished. Right, all this to say that an eco-mooring area is not a one-shot thing, not at all. It's a set of managing tools that need to be used on a daily basis. And so the people using them may vary and evolve. So you always need to be there, on site to inform, raise awareness, and also to see that the users use the system properly. And you always need to keep informing, keep raising awareness, because this eco-mooring area can be effective if people understand its importance, if people are well informed and sensitized, and then the maintenance is equally important. It's a daily job. And so it's something that requires daily work in order to check every day if, for instance, buoys need to be replaced or not. So in order also to avoid bigger problems, because if the buoys then are not there or cannot be used, then you can create damage to boats. And then every year you need to assess the trends and the evolution of the whole area and see if maybe it is necessary to take some corrective actions in order to adjust the things. So it's very important once you have set up the mooring area to be dynamic, to be active, and constantly check the results. When you almost increase by 10 the density of gorgonians per square meter, you really re-establish a variety and density of species that is pretty remarkable. It's an excellent result. And also when it comes to Posidonia meadows, so the protection of Posidonia meadows today has been so much improved. So it works very well. It delivers. We have better results. And the results that we obtain are even less expensive than the ones that you obtain through ecological restoration measures. So, this is an excellent tool to restore habitats, to reestablish habitats without having to apply measures that sometimes are not that effective. Thank you very much, Sylvain. Thank you. Thank you. What you said is very, very interesting, Sylvain. And even more so because this is an area that has sensitive habitats. And certainly it's so important to hear that the protection and the reestablishment of such crucial species has been successful. Thank you very much again, Sylvain, for sharing your feedback with us, because your feedback is excellent, because what you did is really great and very effective. Right, so there are some questions that have arrived, so I'm going to follow the order. So we have a question about a possible cooperation. So when it comes to the installation and maintenance activities, because when it comes to the installation, well, certainly it is pretty expensive, so maybe the state could pay at least partially for that because it's pretty expensive. Well, everybody is trying to somehow apply that model, having so private investors on the one hand, but also public investors. This is what is happening in France. People are trying to find resources for all the phases of the process, starting from the preliminary feasibility study down to the implementation and the setting up. And there are very few people that, can provide when it comes to those resources. And also in France, there are not many private players that join such projects because they do not see, the profitability of such an endeavor, of such an enterprise. For instance, I am currently supporting two private players that would like simply to renew something that is already in place in Corsica. And so they are trying to find the resources to cover, the budgets that are needed. And these two private players, do not want to carry on that any longer because they do not see the profitability of that. And in France, a small mooring area includes 50 buoys, 50 buoys. But then you have areas in the Côte d'Azur where you can have also up to 200 buoys. So maybe that could be more interesting for a private player in terms of profitability, having 200 buoys. And then there was another question about the possibility to having a booking system. So yes, there is a question about booking software in order to increase the income and reducing the operating costs. So, well, actually, we had very little feedback, at least as far as France is concerned. There is an eco-mooring area in Martinica that is using such a software, and apparently, the investment is pretty important. So you needed to invest more to have buoys that are connected, and also you need to invest in the software. But apparently, Martinica, they're very happy with these. I mean. Software booking system that has connected buoys. So apparently it's very successful and effective because in that area you have a lot of tourists and a lot of vessels and boats from different parts of the world, so with different flags. And so far, this system has proved to be very successful, and in Martinique, they're very happy with it. So it is software-based booking system that requires so specifically equipped buoys. And then there are questions about the level of acceptation by the users. Yes, there was a specific question about that, if my memory serves me right. Right, so there is this question. Are there studies about also the reaction of recreational boaters when there is such a paying mooring system? Well, actually, in your case, Sylvain, the mooring is free of charge. But what I can say is that you can visit a site called Ecogeste. I'm going to put the link in the chat. It's an association that tries to share, rules about good behaviors and good practices to be put in place in such areas, so in such eco-mooring areas. I also try to do that because, if you want people to take up good habits, you need to educate people as much as you can. But not all the mooring areas that I know have been shared since the very beginning with the users. So it is very important to share everything from the very beginning. Usually, recreational boaters respect the sea. They know that their actions have consequences, and so they know that their good deeds are going to have good repercussions on the environment. So usually there is a good level of acceptation of such tools and measures. Right. Well, Audrey, I'm trying to answer to you when it comes to the acceptation level by the users. So there's a very high level of acceptability. And then, I mean, mindsets change. So, in my opinion, the acceptation by users is much greater today than in the past. And well, certainly a careful study on this should be carried out in order to see, as a matter of fact, how much people accept and embrace such solutions. And then, as far as the monitoring of such systems, we are going to share with you the results illustrated by Sylvain. And in my presentation, I also shared some monitoring protocols with you. You can download them. And this is to answer a question that has been asked in the chat. Well, that's it. I think there are no further questions. Noé, Emily? Well, there was a question that maybe you skipped about possibility to remove after each season the lines of the different floaters. Well, yes. So the floating line, well, what do we mean? Well, during the previous session, I explained to you the typical pattern of an econ mooring area. So an anchoring solution with a strong solid impact on the seabed, so with the very strong keyhole point, and then having a little buoy that somehow avoids friction with the seabed. So you have a simplified pattern. So with an end that avoids friction with the seabed, and then when you get to the end of the season, so you take away the end, and so you leave a little buoy in place in order to recover and then and find again the good location, the good position at the start of the next season. So this is a device that I showed you in the previous session, so in module number 3. And again, you can apply different management solutions. It depends if you can have an eco-mooring area that stays put all through the year. You can leave everything there, or you can remove what is below the red dotted line at the end of the season. In the uh, in the Antilles Islands, apart from the season of storms, you have a permanent yearly mooring system. And well, they can always remove it if they want, but actually they leave it in place in the West Indies and the Caribbean. So they tend to leave it all through the year, apart from the peaks of the storm season. So there are systems that can really, be left there all through the year. So I don't know if I answered your question about what to remove. Oh, thanks. And we are going to share with you in 1 week's time all the info that we mentioned. Everything will be available from the MedPan website, and also you have our contact details, mine, and also those of Catherine Piante, and also you have all the contact details of the MedPan